Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of 10 Questions About Cloud. Today we have Darko Mesaros with us. Welcome, Darko.
Thank you, Pablo, and welcome. Well, welcome everybody to this podcast.
Yeah, looking forward.
Yeah.
I always use the first question to introduce yourself. So basically tell us, who is Darko?
Who is Darko? For people who can see the video, if there's a video, I'm not sure. This bald person here, that's me, that's Darko. I love talking to developers. I love talking to engineers. I'm an engineer myself. I'm a builder. I like working with tech. You know, when I see a Raspberry Pi or some piece of technology out there, I'm so excited about it. And I love to see people's excitement for the cloud, for technology, for geeky things in general. I also happen to work for AWS as a developer advocate. So my job is to, well, yell at the camera in the last year and speak to you, get your feedback, see what you do and how you do it. I'm based in Berlin, Germany, but originally I am from Serbia. I've been working for AWS for like 5 years now. Yeah, 5 years since I've started at AWS. Moved on from premium support to being a solution architect. And now I, well, get to shout at you from the camera. But yeah, that's me.
Cool. Very cool introduction. I'm curious now about your cloud journey. Maybe you can tell us, when was the first time you heard the word cloud?
Okay, so the term cloud, the first time I've heard it, it had to be somewhere in like 2009-ish, 10-ish, but I didn't know what the cloud was. I've heard of the term, the cloud exists, everything is going to go to the cloud. I was skeptical back then, as a lot of people were. And actually, a company I worked for were building their own private cloud internally, which turned out to be a really big mess and didn't end up properly. And actually, the first time I've worked with the cloud, like actually built something in the cloud, was when I started working for AWS. So my first time seeing an EC2 instance, my first time seeing an S3 bucket or a CloudFormation template was actually on my first day in AWS. So I like a lot of people, my first step in the cloud was with Amazon Web Services.
But I assume that you don't come, maybe you can explain more about your background.
Okay. So yeah, before the cloud,
exactly.
back in those days, there was a thing, people used to call them system administrators. I know, yeah, dying breed. So I was that thing. I was a system administrator, a person who would you call up to set up your web server, your application server, your terminal service, whatever, server administrators do. And I've actually started by, I've started with a Commodore 64. There's a lot of people out there. My first steps were building not even a Hello World application, but like a little squiggly worm application on a Commodore 64. And I even have my book. I always like to show, this is the first book I got in 1990 that explains programming in BASIC. So that's how I started. And that kind of, stirred up my imagination. Oh, I want to do more. I want to just make things move on the screen. And yeah, I started as any kid, dabbling in code a bit. I had like an old computer. And I've actually moved on from there to fixing computers. I was the kid that you call up and, hey, can you reinstall Windows XP for me? And, I would do it for money and reinstall your drivers and all that stuff. And somehow somebody thought, and like, hey, that kid could maintain servers. I wasn't sure, but I got a job as a very simple system administrator in a government office. And yeah, it kind of moved on from there. Basically, my roles and responsibilities as a system administrator became an architect. And then from becoming an architect, I became, I don't know what else, after that. And slowly but surely, as I expanded the amount of servers I maintain, the amount of things I automate, I've ended up at the Amazon Web Services, where everything is at scale, where everything is an API call, and it made me feel very much at home.
Yeah, maybe you can continue that. Why, for example, why would you recommend AWS as a cloud provider, or even as a public cloud provider?
Yeah, why would I do it?
Yes.
Oh, well, so AWS is this place where we strive on innovation. right? The thing AWS wants to do is just keep on innovating. It's not just like we like new things. We hire people who are builders. We hire people who want to do things, people who see when they see a Raspberry Pi, they're excited about it. So, and that's what kind of creates this builder mentality or this innovation mentality at AWS. Hence, you keep on getting new and new services. I'm not sure what is the exact number of new services and features each year, but you see, we try to give new things to customers over and over again. Another thing when it comes to AWS about why do I find it cool, the services you use on AWS, your EC2s, your S3 buckets, your DynamoDBs, right? All of those things are maintained by service teams who are decentralized, have their own autonomous development environments and teams, and they worked directly with customers. They're not some back-end, team you could never get a chance to talk to. I am one of the persons you can reach out to and ask to speak to a service team. So it's great that we it's like customer obsession. We like to take what the customer wants and work backwards from that. So that's very much important. And also, as they say, you eat your own dog food. We at AWS, we use the same building blocks and services and the things we build for our own. So we're not just making things and selling them out there. We are actually benefiting and using those things. Hence, it makes this perpetual circle of continuous innovation and making things better for us and for customers. So I like it. I like that. And, it helps us rapidly innovate things and move things along. And, and if you want to talk about scale, global presence, elasticity and flexibility and immense, unlimited computational power. So that's one of my things why I think AWS is just the cloud provider out there.
I just read that last year AWS released about 400 releases or something like that. So something really, really crazy.
Yeah.
How are you doing to keep yourself up to date?
Higher. Yeah, so that's a problem. And I remember a time like 4 years ago, we had this meeting where we sat down. Is like, there are so many services out there. Like back then, it was like 80 services. I don't know. Like, what's going to happen where there's going to be 200 or 300 services? And it's already there, right? So it's amazing how fast those things come out. But at the same time, it makes it difficult for myself personally to kind of keep up with that. And to answer your question, I don't know. I don't keep up. It's like I could literally spend a big portion of my day just trying to read what's new and what's up to date, but it's impossible. And nobody expects from you as an engineer to do that, because it's just, it's not your job. But if you want to actually try to pick up things, we have a couple of things out there. Your RSS feeds. We have a blog, basically a news portal where you get all the latest releases there all the time. So it's a really great way to kind of get that information out there. On top of that, we have a stream called AWS What's Next. If you go on twitch.tv/AWS, you will find that stream where my colleagues Nick and Rob basically run a weekly show. I think it's a weekly show where they talk about what's new, what happened, what's coming out on AWS. So a nice way to kind of whet your appetite, because nobody expects you to read every service release and everything that's coming out and just like know it all. But at least you should know what has been released, and maybe that has some benefit to you. Because overall, it's very important. You should know only things that should benefit yourself and your company and the people you work with. Because if you go ahead and try to learn all of that, you're just going to forget it. You're not going to be able to do it. So be selective.
Yeah, definitely. Another very common topic is the cloud ecosystem. I mean, it's really broad. You can find topics such as computing, machine learning, IoT, serverless databases. There are a lot of them. But I'm curious now about your focus or your interest.
So me coming from this traditional background of system administration and automation, I am a fan of the mystery people call DevOps. Nobody's able to define what DevOps is with exact precision. But when it comes to DevOps, automation, management, and governance, those things that kind of automate different things to do things is something I like. So if I would kind of focus on a subset of services or groupings of technologies inside of a cloud, you would talk to me about your infrastructure as code, your CI/CD pipelines, your software testing, your observability, your monitoring, your audits and automation and operations. So that's kind of like my little niche, and I'm sticking to it. I know things outside of that, but I know them enough to know how much I don't know about them. So
yeah.
But this is kind of my thing that I personally enjoy.
No, it's pretty interesting. I really like it also.
Yeah.
There is one thing which I didn't ask you yet, but I always ask because it's something which I believe that the cloud has come to stay, and that the cloud skills and cloud knowledge are going to be a standard, kind of mandatory if you work, of course, in the IT industry.
Yeah.
Are you also agree with this, or do you think, I don't know?
Absolutely. I mean, so think of it this way. If you are starting off a business right now, if you are, I'm not saying if you're a business person, maybe you're an engineer, you have an idea, you want to make this a lovely app or a platform or something like that. Would you go the non-cloud route? Like, would you go ahead and just like, I'm going to rent a data center, I'm going to purchase infrastructure, I'm going to purchase all of this. Would you do that? Honestly? No, right, exactly. So I think the cloud here is the default, right? It's just the thing people use, and it makes perfect sense. And I think the need to know the cloud, and I'm talking to my fellow traditional engineers here, knowing the cloud is not different to what you know right now. The only thing you need to do is know a bit of how different things work together, and then there's a lot of APIs. So it's very much similar to what we used to do before, is automate things and make things work perfectly. You just do it in a different level now. So definitely anybody getting into IT now, getting into DevOps, you should definitely be quite aware of the cloud, because it's just, if you see all the customers out there using the cloud, you see all of the, from your massive Netflixes, right, to your tiny little cooking apps, those things are reliant on the scale and the capabilities of the cloud. So I see no reason why you should not put yourself into that position to know those things. So I am all for that.
I completely agree with you that cloud is not just changing the IT, but the organizations, the way to work, the roles also.
Exactly.
It's changing the world, so to say.
When I was younger, so let me tell you the story. So when I was younger, when I was 15, my friend and I were like, we're gonna make a website, and we're gonna host a website, and that's gonna be nothing special, right? And we weren't like, that was in 2003, and we were not sure, like, okay, where do you host a website? How do you do that? In my head back then was like, oh, you need to buy a server, you need to host a server at home, and then you need a satellite internet connection, so you will do that. Okay, back then that was an illusion that you had hosting back then in 2003 and all that stuff. But again, it was somewhere. It was physical. It was, you either had to rent something completely or decide up front. 15-year-old Darko would never be able to purchase hosting, because I couldn't go ahead and just rent a server for a year. No. And today it's basically all very much utilitarian. You need to host something, your code needs to run somewhere. Here's the cloud. You can do whatever you want with your code there, because it's basically a data center in the cloud.
Yeah. So easy as it sounds, but it's the reality. I mean,
it's reality.
Yeah, it's the reality. And I will say that is one of the biggest advantages of the cloud, the easy to build, how fast you can build, how fast you can test an idea, how fast you can create a very simple website.
Yeah.
And I see that as a huge advantage. And of course, you don't have to care about the infrastructure. So you don't have to pay, or to buy a complete server or whatever.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Unlike before, your infrastructure doesn't make you special, right? Before I would have the best, biggest data center in the world, and my application will be the best in the world. It's going to be the fastest. It's going to be most capable. No, everybody has access to unlimited compute resources out there. So your massive data center doesn't make your application better. It actually makes it worse because you have to divert finances, brain power, and creativity to maintain a data center, to have people rack and stack servers. Why don't you take those wonderful people who do that and focus their energy on making the thing that makes you better? And that's your workload, that's your application, that's your service. Your server doesn't make you better. The application running on that server makes you better. So that's the whole thing, right? Focus of your energy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. However, I would also like to add that not every company or not every application is able or is ready to go to the cloud.
Of course.
And it needs a kind of maybe a step far, a middle step, or an hybrid cloud in the beginning, or any other strategy like granularity moving to the cloud, or even just deciding this goes to the cloud, this stays on premise, and whatever. Do you have any experiences with that kind of strategies?
So let me make a statement. Everything should go to the cloud. Almost. I've actually, for the people that don't see the video, there's a little asterisk next to my head. Sometimes you cannot have your entire workload on the cloud. Now, that could be for many reasons. It could be a technical reason that your workload needs to sit in the factory close to your machines because latency is very important. It can be governance reasons, regulatory reasons. Your country, your line of business does not allow you to ship data away from your home country to some other data center. So hence, a lot of people opt into a hybrid approach, right? They have things running in the cloud and they have things running on their data centers. Of course, ideally, you would not have a problem like that. You wouldn't have this split brain scenario. But when you do, the cloud actually helps you with that because you actually can use the cloud to maintain a lot of the things on premises. Of course, there are some caveats here. There are problems with, you don't have the same capabilities in your local data center as you have in the cloud, but you can kind of overcome that. So I've seen examples of people, running the major portion of the workload in the cloud because it's available globally, it's just scalable, all that stuff. But data residency laws require the data to be existent in some specific location. So the entire data processing, data storage, and all the things with the data sits in a data center, on a rack, somewhere in the country of origin. So with all the benefits of, direct connect, which enables you to connect your data center directly into AWS, or just VPN, or a whole bunch of things, it gives you this advanced connectivity between the cloud and your on-premises systems. So I think that's just wonderful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There are a lot of possibilities to migrate, to go to the cloud, and it's just about having an assessment, thinking, and developing the good strategy and adopt it in the right way.
Correct. And like for example, I'm not sure if you see it here behind me. This thing here, it's a rack of Raspberry Pis. I have 4 Raspberry Pis connected in a cluster. They're all controlled by AWS. So the software, the systems, everything that's running on them, I'm actually managing those things through the cloud, running my container cluster at home. So it's a hybrid approach. I don't need it. It's just fun to do. But yeah, that's a thing you can do.
I'm curious now about that project. What are you doing exactly there?
Nothing. Let me see if I can bring it up. It's kind of connected to power. Can I do this? No.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Don't disconnect everything.
It's fine. It's all being managed by the cloud anyway. So this thing, this is a cluster of Raspberry Pis connected to a simple switch, and they're running Docker Swarm. Yes, Docker Swarm. So I'm running Docker Swarm on them. I'm basically running just some simple containers on some of my home automation and some various little nifty things like a ZNC server on them as well. So they're nothing but just like simple Raspberry Pis that run Linux on them. And I've actually hooked them up all into the cloud. And my control plane, my entire management suite is actually on the cloud with these things. So it's a fun little project.
Yeah, but you can see there, or you can show there, kind of the connection to the cloud from a hardware side. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the cloud that you can never see, you know.
So if you have like a rack in your company and you have a rack of servers which you use, there's no reason for you to like say, oh no, we are on premises, we cannot do the cloud. You can do both. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I know and I see that you are really, really active in social networks, sharing a lot of knowledge with the community, participating in multiple events and webinars and all kind of stuff. Can you share with us, when did you start it? Why are you doing that?
So one of the reasons I started using social networks as much, of course, there's different reasons for different social networks, but Twitter, for example, is like the one I most often use. Is it's kind of become a part of my job right now because, you know, I try to reach as much people out there as I can. So make sure to follow me on my Twitter somewhere. But I've actually started using Twitter because I started following people from the industry. One of the fun things about Twitter and the selectiveness of the people you follow is that you get a lot of information out there. So if you would ask me, so how do I know if a specific service has been launched? A lot of times I will hear it on Twitter. So somebody from my team, some of my colleagues, some other people in the industry, other fellow developer advocates would just post it. And I found that to be very, very useful to keep in touch. And now I basically use Twitter to just, share information as well. I'm trying to be that helpful person by sharing things with people, but also I'm just sharing super things. So if you wanna catch up on old retro computers, I have a bunch of retro computers. I post a lot of stuff on that. So if you're interested in like old computing and stupid old hardware, make sure to check it out. I've actually started writing a blog as well. So over the last 2 months, I've decided like I have a lot of things I want to talk about, but I cannot record the talks. I cannot do the webinars. I cannot just do it all. How about I just make a little blog? So basically, I have a few blog posts out there. It's usually around computers and technology and old technology and stuff like that. So I guess the link will be available somewhere in the description or something. So you can also check it out.
Yeah, for sure. I will leave all your social media and links into the description so that anyone can contact you.
Exactly. So feel free to check me out there. I also have a YouTube channel. I actually haven't uploaded a video there in a while, but I have a YouTube channel with a lot of recordings of my streams and some videos on topic of AWS. So make sure to check it out there. And if you want to see me more on like live streams, every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central European time, I do a stream with my lovely friend and colleague Kobus, who looks very much like me. We do a stream called Dev Beard Ops. So it's a fun thing if you want to join in.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
that will be really much fun, I think.
Yeah, it's a fun thing because on that stream, Kobus and I get to talk about the things we like: the DevOps, automation, code testing, pipelines, operations, all those things. We talk it in a very free form like environment. We don't have a script, nothing like that. We just chat about it. We get people in, we get guests. We love chatting to the audience. So if you want to join, ask questions, comments, you're more than welcome.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I have another question for you. It's kind of tricky because I know that you learn a lot of things, that you are constantly learning new things. But I would like you to share with us one of these latest things that you learned that you think they are interesting for the audience.
What is the latest thing I've learned? So one of the latest things I learned, actually, this is a preparation for one talk I'm doing sometimes in the future, is I've learned how to do the non-fun things. So people listening to this, if you ever had to do an audit, or you got a person coming into your company asking for audit information, and they want to know when a specific change has occurred inside of your cloud account or your on-premises, that is a very stressful time. And especially because you have to have the data on hand. I remember in the previous company we literally printed out worksheets of when any change has happened. We had them printed out in a box. And if, audit would come, we're like, hey, here's a box of things, check it out. And that's not the best thing in the world. So I've actually got very familiar with AWS Config and AWS Audit Manager. So I can actually just keep tracking. AWS Config is a service that just tracks changes on specific resources. So for example, let's say you have a security group, a firewall attached to your production instances. And all of a sudden somebody comes in and just changes the port changes the IP address from a specific IP address that it's allowed to any IP address. That's a problem. That's an auditable thing. If somebody comes to an audit, they will ask why this happened and when did this happen. So config actually tracks all of that. Config will give you this lovely timeline when a thing has changed and who has changed it. But also what's great thing about the config is that you can actually develop your own rules to check for specific things. In this case, I'm just checking for a specific port if it has been changed, but I can check for basically anything that's supported with config, and I can automatically remediate. So if somebody comes in and changes the allowed port from 22 to 23, I can actually go ahead and automatically just wipe that out. So AWS Config is just a great thing to kind of keep the management of the system and the governance of things you run out there. So it's the latest thing I've learned actually last week when I was playing with it. So fun things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I have been using AWS Config and CloudTrail a lot.
Yeah.
And but the way I was used to work with them was notifications. For any change, for anything, just notifications. Yep. Notify me immediately if there is something, if anyone or anything changes.
Yep.
And but that automatically you can revert that change.
You can.
That's really another level,
It's and again, it's not for everything. You shouldn't do that for all the things because you might break things that you want to fix.
Yeah.
So for certain things, right? Like your production environments, should never be touched by hand, right? Nobody should come into your production account. Nobody should ever log into your production account. That's one thing. But if you have like a production account that somebody goes and makes a change to a security group, and all of a sudden just you let access to no, you go ahead and automatically move that. And it's great. Sometimes, as you said, notifications are just perfect. Sometimes even not notification, just having a trail that this has happened in that time, that if somebody, from your ISO 2703301 comes in and says, hey, give me the things when they happen because you need it for your certification, you can give that to them. So wonderful things. Much more easier than when we had to do it by hand. On a production system I used to work before, anytime you make a change, anytime you log in, you have to fill out a piece of paper saying that I've logged into a system. So yeah, it's not the funnest thing. And mind you, we actually discussed this yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. All of these automations, all of these things that kind of move the system forward are there for only one reason. We're lazy. And out of laziness, we start automating things. I don't want to fill out a piece of paper stating that I've logged in or changed something. I want a system to do that. And hence, that's why these things are wonderful. I can focus my energy on something I like more, like my Raspberry Pi cluster.
I really love that concept. I mean, in a latest episode with Marcia, was very, very, very funny because she was always saying, I'm a lazy developer. I don't want to. I want to write as less code as possible, but have the same result. And I really love that concept of laziness, but at the end is doing our lives much easier. So we, or even so that we have more time to spend on more important things.
Correct. And that more important thing could be your family, could be your dog, could be eating cottage cheese, right? But the important thing is like you should try to make the most out of your time as possible. Of course, you know, there's people who go like to be, I'm super optimized. Yeah, but are you overdoing it, right? You know, you shouldn't automate everything, but you should automate things that make sense. There's this amazing XKCD graph, which kind of explains how much time do you need to spend on something to make sense for you to automate it. Yeah. So, but yes, overall, all of us are kind of lazy to an extent, and we want to things that because, okay, you know, doing something once is fun. You know, it's a new technology. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I need to click, do these things. It's great. But do that 500 more times. It gets old really fast. So this is where we're like, okay, I need to find a way for this to be a system. This needs to be a mechanism. So yeah, it's that's why we invent these things. And Amazon is built, or AWS is built by developers, by builders, by engineers who want to make things easy for them and for the end customer.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of automation. I always say automate as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because at the end, this will make the things not only easier and faster, but also you will have also less issues, I will say, because there is less people touching everything.
Exactly.
And that's a very important and good point, I will say.
Yeah. We as people make mistakes. No, don't make no mistakes. Make no mistakes about it. No matter how do you think you're proficient in things, you will make a mistake. By not your fault, but just because it happened. So it is very important that you do these things properly, right? That you go ahead and automate things so you do not repeat yourself and break stuff.
I'm a huge fan of that also. I would love to record a video just on talking about things that we broke or mistakes that we did in the cloud, because it's the only way to learn, you know, but I think this could be really, really fun.
Yeah. No, see, this is one of the things when you ask me, like, well, you asked me about the AWS, but one of the reasons people use the cloud, and this is from my experience, is that the cloud gives you the ability to fail cheaply. So let's say you have an idea, and we learn from mistakes. And when I say mistakes, I don't mean a misconfiguration. Of course, a misconfiguration is a mistake, but an idea can be a mistake. Let's say you have an idea to make an application that will sell whatever, right? And you all of a sudden you want to, okay, I want to try this out. I will never know if it'll work if I don't try it out. Instead of purchasing thousands and thousands of euros of worth of equipment and bandwidth and whatnot, and then just having it fail, you can actually just host it on a cloud, try it out for a month, and spend a couple $100 and just fail if it doesn't work. Because by allowing yourself to test things more out, to experiment, you will find something that really works. And with the ability of the cloud, or actually the cheapness of failing of the cloud, it enables you to just be less concerned or be more creative, let yourself go a bit more. So that's one of the great reasons I think the cloud is a thing people should be doing.
I really like that. Yeah. And I think it's a very good sentence to finish the episode here. Yeah. It's been really, really fun. I have learned a lot from you.
Thank you, Pablo.
I would like to thank you for your time, for participating. It's been really a pleasure for me, and I hope that the audience also likes it.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for tuning in and listening to us. I always like to get my story out there, and again, make sure to follow me on the social medias and wherever if you want to get in touch with me. My DMs are always open, so feel free to send me a message wherever you find me.
That sounds very, very good. And then thank you very much, and see you in the next podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.